Me?
We can. Troy, before we get started here, just so you know, we were just notified that while you can listen, you cannot participate in this due to open meeting law. So we won't be offended if you leave, but
But keep your mouth shut.
but just be aware. Yes.
All right.
No holding up signs.
Yes.
Well, no, I'm not leaving. I'm going to keep my eye on you guys.
All
I'll
right.
tell you what.
All right. Very good.
Actually, I'm not feeling the best, so if I can't participate, I might just as well leave then.
Yeah. Understood. Thank you. No problem, Troy.
All right.
Very
Have a
good.
good one.
All right, so I'm going to call to order the Park Board meeting Tuesday, January 25th, 2022, 4 o'clock p.m., City Hall Council Chambers. Can we get a roll call, please?
Tim Boder,
Here.
Troy Rushmeyer, Kara
Not
Schaefer,
here.
Yes, here.
Andrew Scheib,
Here.
Kevin Yeager.
Yes. All right, item number 3 on our list is a Pledge of Allegiance. Would someone like to lead, please?
Sure. I will. Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Kara. All right, number 4 is the election of the officers. Okay, so here's basically how we're gonna run this. The first thing is I'm gonna ask if any member of the Park Board would not or would like to be withheld from being either chair or vice chair first. And once we get through that, then we will know who our options for candidates are, and then we will take nominations from the board as well. And then we'll see what we got for nominations. If we have conflicts, we may go to a paper vote, but most likely we will just try to find consensus with this group. So,
I will pull my name.
okay, so Tim Boder. Tim Boder's off the table.
I don't need to be president again either. I need at least one more year break.
All right. And as far as I know, Troy is,
Looks like there's one choice.
I haven't heard, he's not going to get a choice, right? So, is there anybody else who would like to not be a chair or chair president? And I believe the terms have to cycle over a year. We're not allowed a second year. Is that right? With this, I get my commissions mixed up.
I think it's 1 year.
I know it's 2 on planning commission. You can do consecutive. Okay, very good.
I would not like to be chair.
Okay. So we're down to Troy. We're down to Troy and myself.
Right then.
Yep.
You can't do it. You can't do it.
I can't do
right?
it. Right. Hypothetically, I could do vice chair.
Missed the meeting and look what happens.
There we go. So I need somebody then to make a nomination of our two remaining participants.
I would nominate Troy Rushmeyer for president, Kevin Yeager for vice president.
Very good. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Pose same sign. There we go. So now we have the debacle of Troy, who is not here, could run the meeting, but in such case, it'll be me because Troy is not here. So I'm going to continue on running this meeting. We'll keep her moving. Number 5 is the approval of the agenda. We're looking for any additions, changes, or anything that we need to add, subtract, or move around on the agenda. Anyone?
Mr. Chair.
Please, Mr. Scheib.
Oh, I'd like to add a new item regarding, I guess, a plan for master plans.
Got it. So we're going to put this in new business. We're going to make this item 8D, and we're going to call this master plan discussion. Is that good, Mr. Scheib? Very good. Mr. Sandy.
Yes, Mr. Chair. So I think we can take care of one item under an existing item related to the Mississippi Landing Trailhead Park. That is the WSB contract amendment number 1 that's in front of you tonight. And the other one, I believe we could take care during the J.C.'s Park conversation, which has to do with a proposal that the mayor brought up to purchase some boards for down there. So
Very good. So if I'm understanding correctly, we don't actually need to add an item. We're just going to add these into the discussion, right?
Yep.
Very
Correct.
good. Okay, so with that being said, it sounds like we have the one addition of 8D to the master plan. Do we have any other additions or changes? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept our new agenda.
Move to approve.
Move to approve by Mr. Scheib, second by
Second.
Ms. Schaefer. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All right, very good. Sounds like we have an agenda. Consent calendar. This is notice to the public that all matters listed are considered routine by the board and will be enacted on by one motion. There'll be no separate discussion of these items unless there's good cause shown prior to the time the board votes on the motion. This includes item 6A, approval of the minutes, 6B, approval of disbursements. With that, I'll entertain a motion to accept the consent calendar.
So moved.
So move, Mr. Boder. Second.
Second.
Second, Ms. Schaefer. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All right, very good. And so our first item of unfinished business, this is 7A. This is approve the Brainerd Community Education and YMCA Youth Program contracts. Mr. Sandy, please, will you set us up? Thank you so much.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chair or Vice Chair, members of the board. So over the last few months, Katie and I have met with both Brainerd Community Education and the Brainerd Family YMCA regarding our contract status for 2022. We made revisions based on those conversations, and you'll see they did submit, both Brainerd Community Education and the YMCA submitted proposals related to how things kind of went last year and kind of what they're proposing for 2022. We modified the contracts to kind of reflect what our conversations were with them, and what you have in front of you tonight are both the red line version and a final copy of both. As I stated in the agenda request, some of the more substantive changes are related to scheduling and how both of those entities submit their schedules to us. Basically, the conversation around that was the earlier the better for us. We utilize their schedules to program field maintenance and our activities that need to happen before they use the facilities. And so there was a little bit of some hiccups last year related to the submission of schedules and getting everything sorted out. And then after that point, changes and when changes can be submitted, because if they all of a sudden want to go and do a practice at a park that's not prepared, there's things that we do to each field before they use them that we need to know about a little bit sooner. Obviously, we can't control weather and things like that, so those are understandable changes. But if there's just a change based on where they want to use a field, we would like to know about that a little sooner. The balance of field usage, we just kind of strengthened that language that we should try to at all times balance the field usage between Brainerd and Baxter. We did add a clause about purchase of new equipment. Some of the items that got brought up last year during the year, basically we asked that both Community Ed and the YMCA ask for those items at the beginning of the year so that we can negotiate those new equipment items. For example, pitching machines, things like that, or L screens, things that get brought up mid-year. We're just trying to get a little bit ahead of that to make sure that they propose that and we agree that those are needed items for that. And of course, the annual fee for both contracts, those both did go up. I think Brainerd Community Education is asking for $13,000 a year. That is based on their contribution they get from the city of Baxter for running their programs, and they based our number on a 60-40 split. Basically, Baxter pays 60% and Brainerd pays 40%. Baxter pays a little more because they run more programs for the city of Baxter during different times of the year. The YMCA, I did ask for a fee increase, and that is just based off the services they provide and where they kind of ended up last year. So those are the changes, the more substantial changes. I think Kim went through them and looked at some punctuation and things, but I think we are good to go on our end unless Katie has anything else to add.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Sandy. All right, I'll turn it over for discussion on the board here. We do have a recommendation from staff approval to approve the new contracts, but I want to give us a chance to talk about this a little bit if we have anything.
What are we going to draw a line as far as how much they're going to be able to increase every year? It seems awful sufficient, double their wages in 1 year. I mean, no one else in this room's been doubled this year. And I think that was our idea, to try and alleviate some of the fees. Somewhere we got to go from 5,000, 10,000 in 1 year. That doesn't make sense to me.
If I can answer that.
Yeah, please,
question,
Mr. Sandy.
Chair. I think The first year was always going to be kind of an unknown because they were taking on a complete program system that they've never done before. I guess, they went through their budgeting process, looked at what the city of Baxter pays and how much we were paying, and the amount of programs they were running in relation to ours and the city of Baxter as far as community education is concerned. And so I feel like their number is more in line with what is, fair for both Brainerd and Baxter to pay. As far as the Y is concerned, I don't think that they've ever really done this before on behalf of a city to kind of run their city programs. And so I think that was kind of an unknown shot in the dark to begin with on their end. So I still feel like both fees are very reasonable compared to how much we used to invest in our programs and for the amount of quality I believe we get out of the YMCA and community ed for programs. I think that the $23,000 that we're paying is well worth the investment. Obviously, we can certainly go back and negotiate different cost terms if the board wants us to do that.
Thank you, Ms. Sandy.
I have a question.
Ms. Schaefer, please.
I love how the Brainerd, how the Y gave us that bar graph or pie chart and percentages and how much the increase. That's really cool to see where all the kids came from. I see that that didn't really happen with community ed. Maybe we didn't request it; they just went above and beyond. But it might be cool to know where the kids, because they said it was fairly split or whatever. It was fairly equal distribution, but it might be nice to know what those numbers are. And then it's kind of cool that they did a survey, that the Y did. So I don't know if we want to say that would be nice to know feedback from the families if they do see an improvement working with community ed as well. I know it's too late to do now, but maybe something to think about. I guess
Thank you.
It wasn't a question, it was a comment.
Yeah. Anything else anybody has to add? Mr. Bedell.
Yeah, I have two remarks. The first of which is that I see that both entities are listing T-ball as being one of the programs they want to run. How does that work?
So the YMCA runs more of a 3-4-year-old T-ball, and I believe and they let in some 5-year-olds, but then Brainerd Community Ed, they run kind of an older T-ball, like a 5, 6, 7 T-ball. So they're both T-ball.
Okay. Okay, I just want to make sure that we're not
Doubling up.
coming up, and we had success with the YMCA, so I don't want to step on their toes at all as well, because I don't believe, did community ed do T-ball for us last year? They did as well? Okay.
The older kids.
Okay. And my other main comment is on field usage. As a parent who had a kid in baseball last year, the only field that we used, for the Pony kids at least, was our stadium. The Pony field, I believe, maybe got used for Bronco games. Anyways, the larger question becomes, and I wish Troy was here because Troy could speak to it better as well. The larger question becomes, are our fields set up to be used the way that we want them to, so that we are getting them used? If it's an instance of the mound not being far enough back or the bases not being wide enough, are we changing those? Are we making changes to try and get the games here? Because I think that's the most important piece of this, is that if we are taking on 40% versus 60%, that tells me, at least without knowing for sure, that Baxter's now paying less for their service
No.
that they're getting. They're still
They're
gonna be
paying
the same?
60% of the overall fee. We're paying 40.
Well, but over the overall though, so they're still paying exactly the same amount that they were before?
Yes, we were substantially lower than they were
Okay,
last year.
okay, well, that alleviates some of that.
Yep.
I just want to make sure that our fields are getting used, and that if we need to make changes to our fields, that we're going to do that. So that we're not telling them, hey, you have to use our fields, and then, hey, by the way, our bases are 90 feet.
Right.
We're in the process of moving bases and getting anchors at different lengths. So we're in that process of being able to convert even, I mean, it's been discussion potentially down the road to be able to convert our adult softball fields so they could use those for baseball tournaments. So those are being used more on weekends so they can keep like increasing their participation for the BBBA. So it's definitely been in conversation of making our fields more convertible.
Perfect, 'cause
I love that, yeah, I think that's.
Yeah, because as a parent, that was one of my biggest concerns was if our fields aren't set up for what kids are playing baseball on now, let's make sure that we're changing them so that they can use them, even if it's just for practice. Let's get our bases to 90 feet. But then the second question becomes, do we have any type of say in making sure that that language in there is strong enough that we are getting our fields used? Because there is going to be concern about, oh, it's too easy to hit a home run, which as a parent of a player, I can tell you right now, they all want to hit home runs. So I don't know why we're not making the fence 2 feet long so they can all hit home runs.
Right.
But I just want to make sure that the language is strong enough in there so that they're aware that it's really important that our fields are getting used, and whatever we need to do to change our fields, we'll go ahead and do that, aside from probably moving the fence.
Anybody, anything else? Okay, so I'd like to just jump in here real quick, and I think, Kara, you were going exactly the direction my mind was going here, and that is that I would like to see if, I'd like to pitch it to you guys, if we can establish some baseline of basic end-of-the-year reporting from both entities. Now, I don't know what that looks like, but I can tell you that what the YMCA turned in is really close to what I'd love to see from both entities. And I just want to be careful that we're not establishing a baseline of where where both entities can just come back to us and say, this is your price next year, hope you like it. I'd like some level of accountability to kind of what the numbers are, why they need to be greater, why they need to be where they are, or some version. So if it's not too much trouble to ask the staff to devise some kind of a mechanism of basic year-end reporting on use, field use, where the money is, how we ended up on money-wise, and then just a basic reporting every year. I think that'll really help us make the decision of whether or not we're spending the money wisely in the direction we're going. So I was just going to pitch that to you guys and see what you think, and then that's something we could look at every year also. That staff feel like you guys could wordsmith something to both institutions to say at the end of each year, this is the basic report we need, so keep track of it during this upcoming year. And
Yep, and any substantive changes in cost in future years there needs to be some substantive justification to make those cost adjustments.
Yeah.
I would think, after we get a couple years under our belt, which I think we have now, and so any future cost increases, I think we should ask for, substantiation past that point.
I'd also, one second please, Jennifer, and I'd also just love to see a basic survey completed by both for just user satisfaction, that type of thing. So we can just kind of keep our thumb on the pulse of how they're actually doing out there, both entities with what they're up against. We obviously want to help them. So the intent of this is to help them with field use. And like you said, Mr. Bordeaux, anything we can do on our end to make them more successful, but also keep our thumb on them a little bit. Ms. Bergman, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Also just looking in compensation. So with our agreements that we're working on for the charter contributions as well as to BLADEC, we tied compensation to the receiving of a report. And so I wonder if maybe under compensation we want to say contingent upon receiving the report. I don't think we've had a problem with the Y or community ed, but I think it's just one more protection that we could put in there that we're sure we're getting those.
Agreed, Ms. Bergman. Yeah, I don't think we want to make it more trouble than it's worth, right? We don't want to turn this into a deal breaker with either entity, but basic housekeeping. Mr. Sandy?
We do request quarterly reports from them before payment is made each month right now, so we could tie an end-of-the-year report to final payment.
Awesome. And my thinking is that we could review these year-end reports prior to you guys going back to the table and then negotiating the next year's contract is kind of how I see this timing-wise playing out. They turn in their yearly report, we get a chance to banter about a little bit with it, then we come back with a recommendation, see where they're at, and so we have the information in front of us to everyone. Mr. Bordeaux?
Yeah, I'm just wondering about length of contract as well. Is this something that we envision being a year-to-year contract every single time? And then at some point, are we interested in entertaining other proposals as well? Because did we send this out as an RFP? Okay, we did last year, did we not? I believe last.
No,
We
I
did.
think we just direct negotiated with both community and the Y. I don't think there was ever a document that was created that went out to multiple agencies.
I think we had an RFP, but I think we only had 2 participants.
Right.
Yeah, initially we did.
Yeah.
I just want to make
negotiated
sure
with
that
both,
we're aware that, you know, if it's going to be year to year, the chances are that we're probably going to see increases. So at some point, we need to be, you know, aware that potentially there may be somebody else in the community.
Keeping a
that's interested
baseline,
as well.
yeah.
And our responsibility to the taxpayers is to make sure that we're being fair to everyone involved.
Agreed. All right, we good on this? Yeah, sorry. Just, Mr. Sharp, sorry.
No, Andrew raised his hand, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Just one thing after Kara's comments. I think the pie chart is great, but the one thing that's missing is the number of hours those people participated. So if they had a bunch of kids register for a 3-week season and then the rest were involved in longer things, that is maybe lost here. At least evaluating year over year, knowing.
Intensity of use.
Yeah, exactly. Just for seeing price increases, I think that would help tie it a little bit.
Awesome.
Okay, one more thing. On the
Yes,
Ys,
please.
it does say 2 years, though.
I-
So they're
and-
doing 2 year and community ed's doing 1?
No.
Or no, it's not really 2 years? What? Oh, did you change that?
They proposed 2
Oh,
years,
they
then we
proposed.
just put it back
We
to
did not
1.
accept. Okay, got it.
And I, for one, like the year to year personally. Yeah,
Yep,
I
that's
think
what I
that
was gonna say.
that's a good thing. So we're in agreement there. Okay, so staff was looking for some direction on the approval of the contracts that are currently in front of us for both YMCA and community ed. So that's our action we need to move on tonight at some point, or today at some point. So I think we've given some direction to staff as far as going forward next year with our year-end reporting, but we do have to pull the trigger on something here.
I can make a motion to approve the 2 contracts with the side note of adding that survey or like the additional stuff we talked about. Does that work? For a
Works for
motion?
me.
Okay. All right.
Second.
We got a motion and a second here. Do we have any discussion? Mr. Bedell?
I just want to add one more thing that I am aware that the Baseball Association is currently still evaluating whether or not they are going to require their players to play. So that will substantially change this if they decide not to. So I think we just need to be aware that that could be the case. That, you know, maybe this year they make that decision, maybe next year they make that decision. So I just know that they are sending out a survey currently and that they have said that they have not made a decision whether or not they will require their kids to play. Last year they did.
Okay.
It may change, so.
Understood. Thank you. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to item, let's see, where am I here? Item number 7B, this is update on Memorial Park construction. I think I'm going to jump right to Chris if you're ready.
All right, so we did, there was some emails here from Paul last week with still some ongoing issues, primarily with the doors. We did meet actually with Norson and Anderson Brothers today. I think a lot of the mess on the doors is more, they got sheetrock mud up against the door frames, so that, I think that's a lot of why it's cracking over there. So the mud is gonna be removed and they're gonna caulk all those in, and that will be a little more flexible. I mean, there's always a little bit of movement there, but structurally, I don't think there's anything going on with it. So it's more just some cleanup work with fixing getting the mud pulled away from those and getting those caulked. They're still waiting on there's some lower profile thresholds for the doors that are supposed to be in this week, and they're still waiting on some of the door hardware on the restrooms. So as soon as those things are in, they'll get those taken care of, but it's just right now on some of those things, it's more of a supply issue and things are taking forever, which is similar to the doors last summer. They were sheetrocking before the doors got here. That was just a long lead time on the doors. I believe the other item was the countertops in the kitchen area. We did point those out to them, and there's got them just a couple of suggestions there on how to beef those up. And right in the corner, the countertop was pulling apart, so they're going to put a cleat on there, and there's So they get that taken care of and also sturdy that up on the wall side as well, where it was a little bit flimsy, but that should take care of those issues. I think that was everything, wasn't it?
Besides the boards.
Oh, yep, the boards. We've got some issues with the boards on, so when boards were installed, it was relatively warm at that time. Now we're seeing 15, 20 below, so it's extreme temperature change. I guess what we're kind of seeing on there is even on the screws look like they're almost put in an angle, but I think what's happening is those boards are shrinking now and it's pulling everything and they're breaking at the corners. So we've talked to the reps. They are gonna, warranty those, obviously. I don't know that they have given anybody a time frame yet on fixing those, but they are gonna replace, any panels that are breaking out there. So, so they're, they're not walking, they're gonna honor, their system and the warranty and all that, so they will get replaced. But in talking to Troy out there today, I don't think anything is unusable at this point, but it is something that has to get resolved, and they will do that in time here. But again, I don't have a time frame on that one. That'll get taken care of. But
Awesome.
Speaking of unusable, how can we not use a hockey rink on the north side of it? And the water just runs back down towards the blue line. Now we have concrete on the north side of the boards.
I guess I was talking to Troy about that today. He seems to think it's more of an issue with the way the sun hits it and is reflecting. They're not
30
being able
below
to
that
make.
wind chill yesterday, and there was still water there being melted away.
I would have to look into that a little more. I guess, again, talking to Troy today, I got the impression it was more of, he's thinking it's more of the sun hitting it there and reflection off the boards, and he's having trouble making ice on it. But we can certainly look into it and see if it is an issue with the concrete. Is that your
It's on the
understanding that
north
the
side
water
of the
is?
of the large rink too?
Correct, and I mean, it's been cold for 3 weeks. I know the sun's got some power, but something is not right where it's not holding water. It gets flooded, and the water runs back towards the blue line. It doesn't stay where it's supposed to be. It runs back towards the blue line, which is, the water heads south. It doesn't stay on the north side or along the boards, and it all, about the size of this desk, away from the board, it's all concrete. That's you can't play hockey on that.
Okay. Yeah, we can definitely look into it. I guess I got a little different story from Troy on that. He seemed to think it had more to do with just the way, and it's weird when you're trying to make ice. I mean, I was talking to him about the small rink. He said he's having a really hard time making ice there too, because it's getting enough heat from the sun where it's not bonding, and it's almost, the ice is almost just floating there on the concrete, and it's just, even though it is extremely cold, a little bit, a reflection or just the color in the concrete or the boards is enough to, generate heat in places where it won't necessarily make ice. But we can certainly look at if it is the case, if it's not holding water. But
Like I say, I'm there a couple of times a week, and to me, it's a jaw dropper how the ice does not form, even though you can drive on every lake in the state. But for some reason, we can't make ice 2 inches thick on our $300 million park. And it just seems awful confusing that the sun is going to make that much of a difference at Memorial Park, where it's never had that much of a difference anywhere else in the parks that we've had ice at before.
yeah. So you seem to think the water is flowing away from the boards, and that's why. Okay.
Might take some time to talk to Troy and see when they're actually flooding, if they're getting freezing there, or if it's running back before it actually freezes.
Yeah, I'll get in touch with him and talk.
It's been
about that
so
a little
cold
bit more.
lately that when they flood, the top ice freezes before the water below it does. So a lot of times it'll have air pockets and cracks or whatever, but it doesn't, which is understandable in the Minnesota winter. But there's nothing along that north side of the boards that is holding water, and I'm pretty confused by it
Okay.
and concerned by it. Like I say, it's
Yeah.
brand new.
No, rightfully so. Well, yeah, I'll talk to Troy. I didn't, I didn't get that from him today when I talked about that, but I'll certainly look
Like I
into
say,
that.
it's not going to go away by itself, so it's got to be fixed by somebody or something. So.
Yeah.
Because we have hockey tomorrow night that they can't play on because there's a 4-foot chunk of boards they can't use because it's all concrete.
Okay.
It's taking away the reason that we built a new rink.
Right.
All right.
All right, let me dig in, into that.
Let's take a look at it. We'll add this as an agenda item next time, just to make sure we get an update on what's going on there. Okay? Or if something comes out beforehand, we can send out an email and just let us know what's going on there. Okay? Yeah, please.
Yeah, and I had someone
Sorry.
approach me as well about the ice, and they seem to believe that we're not capable of making thick enough ice because of the door, that the door isn't high enough up.
This is the first time I've heard about that one.
Okay.
Dave.
That comment was made to me from one of the coaches. So I just want to pass that along, that was what they believed the problem, what one of the problems was. But very concerned. And there are people out there that, in the public, that are very concerned that we're not able to make ice on a hockey rink.
All right.
Yeah, I will look into the door issue as well.
That was just their comment from
Yeah.
one of the coaches, so.
But I would prefer that somebody does something soon, because by the time we meet next time, the season will be over.
Yeah.
So somebody's got to fix something, because it needs to be done, or not use it at all.
For sure. Okay, so we got some direction on this, guys. We're gonna jump on this ice situation, get us an update, okay, if we could.
Yep.
Very good.
Sounds good. All right, thanks.
Thank you, Chris. All right, item number C, this is the Mississippi Landing Trailhead Park final layout. Mr. Sandy, please.
Yeah, so at the last meeting, you guys received some preliminary drawings of what the project management team has been working on for the Mississippi Landing Trailhead. What you see in your packet tonight is more refined drawings of the proposed park. We've been working just about every 2 weeks as a PMT to give WSB enough direction on how to move forward with certain design elements and how the park looks. And once you guys receive that stuff, I haven't received any comments as far as placement of items, if anything is completely out of whack from what you guys were imagining. So I guess looking for some direction here tonight on if anything that the PMT's been working on is completely out of line with what you were thinking, or if this is good moving forward, kind of getting a stamp of approval on it.
Very good. All right, there's our directions, guys. So in the packet, we had plenty of plans to look at there. There's been really no substantial changes over the last 2 versions of this that we've seen. Once we moved the bathroom and kind of rejanked around the bathroom area and that, this is pretty much the similar version, just more completeness on the drawings from the last version that you saw. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to you guys for any questions, comments, concerns that we see. PMT, large group of people have been working on this now for quite some time, even before the design work started. So I know we have Don in-house here too. So we'd love to hear if there's any comments.
Sean, there is more of a landscape type plan on page 48 of the packet.
I have a question.
Yes, please, Ms. Schaefer.
So page 47, where it has like all of the, different, you guys know page 47, right? Okay. So what are these again? Are these our options, or are these what you guys are going with, or what we're going with?
I wouldn't get stuck too much on the colors. So
Okay.
for example, on the left side, the concrete colors, that's more just to show the pattern design
Okay.
rather than the actual color of the concrete. Same what goes, the block wall in the middle is very similar to what we're looking at. It's very similar to what you see in Rotary Park. The river overlook railing is pretty much what we're looking at. The block type on the bottom middle picture is really what we are looking like for the steps on the amphitheater. And then the bathroom structures are going to be kind of formulated to match what we have in our other parks like Memorial and Gregory. So.
Yep, that's what I was wondering. Thank you.
Anything else? It's a lot of work here. And I think it's looking fantastic. I'm super excited about it.
Are those trailers that are in that parking lot now, is that part of planning ahead, or those are the schools?
I guess I don't know.
Physically there right now.
The storage units, those are the schools, aren't they?
There's 3 of those
Storage
containers?
pods? Yeah, they were storing some stuff down there for right now. Yep, for the remodel projects. So.
Anything else? Anybody? All right, our action item is to approve the drawings here, guys. The final layout, I should say. Boom.
I would make that motion.
Big coup de grace moment, Mr. Gore. A
Second.
motion to approve by Mr. Boder.
Second.
We have a second by Mr. Shipe. Do we have any discussion? Mr. Bedell?
Yeah, my only comment is just to make sure we're aware that this will all go out for bidding, and so it's not a finalized park. It's just a finalized layout that will then go out for bidding. So there may be pieces of this that may be removed. But I love what has happened here, and it's a great look. It's got a nice Mr. Peanut Park. I like it.
Absolutely, yes. There are alternates, everyone. Keep in mind that there are alternates, bid alternates in place here. So what we're really looking at is kind of what should be thought of as a master plan. All or parts of this may be done in this first wave, potentially by consecutive waves after. But I'd like to extend my appreciation for everyone that has worked on this for the past actually many years to bring this to fruition, and I'm very impressed with what we see here and happy to be a part of it. So with that, any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving this signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Very good. Thank you. Thanks, Don.
Mr. Chair, we also have the added item.
Oh, yes. So, yep, we're going to add on, Mr. Sandy, you should have a document in front of you, Park Board, that Mr. Sandy placed here. This is the WSB supplemental contract amendment for the testing. Do you want to set us up on this, Mr. Sandy? Tell us what we're looking at here.
Yeah, so this contract amendment is specifically related to the hill overlook area. The river overlook area.
Same thing I did, Mr. Sandy.
Yep, two different things. It's the area on the end of the promenade there that is over the river. Back when this thing was kind of scoped, it was kind of figured that that would be kind of set further back on the bank, and it could be almost like a slab on grade kind of plaza thing. Through time, we figured that we wouldn't get good views up and down the river without getting that thing out there a little further. And so with that comes some structural evaluation, including some soil borings. And soil borings and structural evaluation is out of the scope of work of what WSB originally proposed, which is now what you see in front of you tonight. In order to do those soil borings and that structural evaluation, WSB is asking for a contract amendment of $8,000 to do that evaluation to ensure that the soils and things can be constructed and structurally sound.
Understood.
Yeah.
Mr. Sonmore, please.
Just add on to that too. I mean, the way that this overlook is designed now, this is almost more like a bridge. So the platform is actually kind of cantilevered out. So it is a more extensive process. I mean, we're looking at, deeper foundations on this versus what Paul, originally said. We're looking at more of a kind of a slab, structure out there. So that there's a lot more that goes into it. Looking at, we're looking at 70 feet on those borings to get down, which is more typical of like a bridge type superstructure. So.
Right. Mr. Sandy, just so everyone is aware, so this $8,000 would be coming effectively out of the budget for total budget for the project, but as with many projects, the scope it changes somewhat throughout the design process. So yes, effectively this $8,000 is coming out of the budget, but the aspirations for the park have changed throughout a little bit as the design process has moved along. So just so everyone knows that where that $8,000 is coming from, it's coming from the total park project budget, I should say. You need approval on this, correct, Mr. Sandy?
I'll make a motion to approve this
Okay.
addition to the contract.
Got a motion to approve by Ms. Schaefer.
Second.
A second by Mr. Boder. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Very good. Okay, we're on to new business, guys. Item 8A will be our first. Thank you, Don. Item 8A will be our first item here. This is to approve the 2022 concession plan and changes. And I'm excited about this because I heard there was a lot of time and effort and energy that went into what we're going to see here. So with large anticipation, I'm going to turn this over to Katie to set us up and walk us through what we're looking at here, Katie. Thank you.
Yep, so, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. So, I handed out a piece of paper, sorry, those in the audience do not have this, but, in summary, so it was budgeted, 45,000 in revenue, expenses, 43,000, and then profit, 1,000 some. However, we reworked and took a lot of notes and consideration into a new plan for the concessions where our estimated revenue is 1,000 more than what was estimated, and then expenses, we're only looking at 30,000, which is 13,000 less dollars, and then profiting 16,000, which gives us some wiggle room if there are any contingencies that occur next year for the concessions. Some of the notes and considerations are in front of you. I can just do a quick summary. The number one thing we're in a contract with Viking Coca-Cola, and we're in the process of, we have to purchase 1,275 units from them. We're not even close to that. So it is in our benefit to continue with Viking Coca-Cola and not cancel the contract, although it would have been the 3-year mark at March, but they let us use coolers free of charge. And they do offer some rebates back to us. So those are something to be considered. Food trucks last year, as an added benefit to our public, it also took away about half the revenue or half the product sold a night. So that's something to be aware of. Just the variable of when the food truck will be there or not. Masters softball, as well as Tuesday kickball next year will be structured differently. Masters will be moved to Wednesday, so we won't have that added cost, wage cost on Fridays, and then we won't be serving concessions at all for kickball. That was voted on by the kickball participants that they don't want it there. So that's also a wage savings. The whole Brainerd Baxter Baseball Association and their tournaments, whether or not they want us there, could impact a lot. Basically, we won't purchase as much, we wouldn't make as much revenue also, but those things kind of cancel out. But the biggest thing is if they didn't want us there, we wouldn't have the expense of having staff at the tournaments. So that's just something to consider. And then also, JC's Park is kind of a giant question mark right now, whether or not we want to have concessions there. In the summer, we can't do a full concessions license there due to the building not being structurally to the Minnesota Department of Health's guidelines right now. I think it is in next year's budget to do some upgrades if that's something we want to consider after a summer. But it would just basically be a special event license whether or not we want to do that at JC's. The next item, we eliminated about 26 items from what we purchased last year. So whether or not it was more so they just didn't sell well. So I would consider, it's a good thing that we eliminated a lot of products, keeping it more simple in our concession stands. Let's see. Oh, there were some things we used to have to purchase large, like a new hot dog machine or a popcorn machine. But in the future, we're now allowing the maintenance crew $10,000 to purchase new freezers, fridges. That was budgeted.
Capital, yep.
Yeah. So that's great because then we won't be taking that out of concessions. And also it's great because we won't have a lot of wasted product. Like if a freezer goes bad, all that product goes bad on us. So that's really great moving forward. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is that the numbers on the back of this piece of paper are very rough. They are to what we paid last year. Now, who knows with where product is or how long it's going to take to get to us, or even if it's available, or probably going to be increased in price. So these numbers are just based off of last year's, and we did increase almost every single product in price so that we're making a higher profit margin. So, yeah, that's just kind of a giant list of the things we are planning on selling next year. And then a little bit of wiggle room with the profit being so much larger than it has been in the past. With that, I'll take any, I would like to ask the approving of this plan moving forward and any modifications the board has to it. And then also to thank Kim for working very extensively on a large spreadsheet on every single product we have, so.
Thanks, Kim. All right, guys.
I have a couple questions.
Please.
Okay, so number one, on the paper with the Viking Coke, they gave us 30 cases of 12-ounce cans of pop or soft
Yes.
drinks, but we sell 20-ounce ones. So where did those go?
They're
Or-
special events, so
Oh.
it's just in the contract, they give us cans for like the fishing clinic that we give away free to our participants. We do a shore lunch, so like stuff like that, they give away. And then the Valentine's Day skating party, they also give to that
Okay.
as well.
So have we already received all of those and used them since
Not for
2019?
for
we get-
2021, yes.
Okay, so they give us that many each year?
Each year, correct.
And that's something that we normally, if we didn't have it, would we buy it? I mean, is it
No.
value added?
Well, no, we wouldn't probably buy it.
Value added, yeah.
Yeah,
It is
Value to our
value added.
events, yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
And then the 26 products you eliminated are off, they're not included on this list?
They're not on that list.
Okay, so do we need to sell like so many suckers? And I mean, I'm not, I feel bad like tearing this apart because you already did it, but like it seems like maybe there's like 8 kinds of suckers and then like Tootsie Rolls. I'm just thinking of like an inventory perspective coming from the retail world, like you have to like deal with like Tootsie Rolls? Like, I mean, I don't know. If we were to eliminate, that could maybe save us like $500 to $700 if we're on average with these prices, but I don't know. I see we sell a lot. It looks like 700 blow pops. That's amazing. But do we need the super blow pop and the blow pop? And maybe I'm just like digging in and this is like pennies, but I'm like, holy cow, this is like a lot of stuff at a concession stand for you to manage. And that's all
Yeah.
I'm thinking is like the time. Someone has to order, someone has to open the box, someone has to pull it off the shelf. Like someone, again, this is my retail background coming into play. Just curious if we need to have all those assortments of suckers.
It's just, with raising some of the prices of some of the other items, it's nice to have low-cost items for kids that come up with only 25 cents,
Okay.
you know? But I'm open to modifying if you want to nix off something.
I mean, I don't know how I would choose which blow pop to get rid of. I mean, again, it sounds so silly as I'm saying this out loud. It made sense like more in my head, but, and then, yeah, and the Tootsie Roll thing, I'm just like, that's just crazy to me, but,
The poor fruit snacks bringing up the rear. $45.
yeah. And again, I don't know. I'm just, I guess, making conversation, but, that's all my comments that I have, so.
But Carrie, you're exactly right. I mean, as a short, chubby guy who eats a lot of snack food, I ran a racetrack, I sold food, the whole, and you had said something before about keep it simple. That's exactly right. It's in food preparation and retail. KISS, keep it simple, stupid kind of thing. And the less you offer, you're still going to sell the items. You're just going to have less choices to worry about. So if you're selling food, you sell one French fry to a restaurant, and they use it for 7 or 8 different areas. As opposed to one Tootsie Roll, as opposed to, kids are gonna eat Tootsie Rolls no matter what, or blow pops, whatever it might be. But they don't need, if you give them a choice, they'll use the choice. If you don't have a choice, they'll sell you a blow pop anyway.
Understood. Anything else? Yes, please, Mr. Bedell.
I just want to say that I like the dollar amount.
Yeah.
This is much better looking than where we were before.
I love it.
So
Yeah, absolutely.
that's my comment.
And we didn't
Tootsie
even
Rolls are
rename.
not-
We didn't even rename the tournament burger to the Bedell burger yet, which is our.
Yet.
This is the move that we were counting on that would really take us into the black.
Step 1, fix the financials. Step 2, name everything after me.
Tournament burger, it could be the Bedell burger, right? Let's try it for a summer.
Extra cheese.
Thanks.
Extra cheese.
It does look really good, and I am very happy because you did exactly what we said and asked. Like,
Correct.
We're like, we're losing too much. So you made this happen, or you proposed. So like, that is awesome. I didn't mean to like lead with negative things, and they're not negative. It's just like a way to think about it. Like, that's all. So good job.
The only error I see is the double bubbles for 17 cents a piece. Why are we selling 17-cent gum?
Oh, sorry. So I divided it by, so, sorry, so it's
don't be
actually
sorry.
it's 3 for 50 cents, if that, I just didn't write that down.
6666667.
Mr. Bedell, please.
Yeah.
Katie, you made just a brief reference to the tournaments and staffing. Just wanted to get your feel for, do you think it's more important for us to be available for that, or is it something that we don't need to be available for our staffing for their tournaments?
It's a difficult question to answer. I think that if I know early enough, that helps a lot. Do I think it's a really good opportunity for an association to make money? Yeah. So it's kind of like that. I don't.
Okay. I think you answered my question.
Mr. Shipe?
I had one question. Do we take cash and cards for
No.
this?
Yep. So that's a good question. It's been brought up to try it at Memorial Park to take credit card. It's doable. I would just need you guys to say you'd like us to go that route and try it, but it can be done. It's just.
We would do it as like a trial basis in just the Memorial Concession Stand and see if it's utilized enough for it to pay for itself.
I'm assuming that means we get a swiper for one season only, see how it goes. We asked staff to flesh this out and see what it might look like for us and bring it back, and
Well said.
I think maybe,
Okay.
we could do that. I like that idea.
Yeah, I just wonder if that could increase some of the revenue of people who didn't bring cash, just have their phone.
It happens a lot.
Tap to pay.
Yeah, we talked
get a
about
bottle
it
of
briefly
water.
with our IT, actually.
Obviously, there's costs associated with having a swiper, but the whole world has it, so.
Yep.
Outside of the double bubble, it's probably
Yeah,
still
17 cents.
profitable.
We'll just throw that on the card.
Yeah, good point. Excellent.
Kim just retired. I am not adding that up.
So I'm going to cycle back real quick just to the options of what we have on this list. We need to give staff some direction here on either to remove items, to leave it as is, or give further direction here. So we kind of left that open-ended. Do we want to add or remove items at this time?
The Tootsie Roll.
Tootsie Rolls?
If I'm the only one who thinks this is a lot, then just, it's just me.
We already dropped off 22 from this year, correct? What is-
26.
Whatever the number is, and obviously the ones that she knows or we know didn't sell very well. Now we're moving on to something that was numbers. Maybe we'll look at it again next year and reevaluate and
Yeah, good
see
plan.
if we can chop off 26 next year.
This is pretty easy to track.
Kim.
All right.
Like, okay.
All right, so staff is looking for looking for us to approve this concession plan and changes for next, what would be 2022, so.
Move to approve the proposed concessions plan and a trial of credit card and tap to pay at Memorial for the summer.
All right, fantastic, fashioned into one motion. So we have a motion in place, do we have a second?
Yep, I'll second.
Yeah, second by Ms. Schaefer. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, same sign. There you go. Very good. Item 8B, this is the approve the memorial bench and tree policy. Mr. Sandy, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, or Vice Chair now, members of the board. So after we got done with the design standard stuff, some things that got brought up many times last summer was the randomness and placement of memorial benches or just benches in general, especially in Gregory Park. Once we kind of got that guidance from you all about how we should be placing benches, ease of maintenance, that kind of thing, we generated some ideas internally about what kind of guidance we should put around a memorial bench program. And so what we did is we just added on to the memorial bench form. And this does include memorial trees also. Basically, the policy goes through, through our memorial bench program, we promote the placement of dedication of benches purchased by members of the public. Placement of benches shall align with our policies, design standards, and guidance. And then it goes over what that placement standard is. It says basically that the bench should be placed near a walkway, sidewalk, path, or in a park or green space setting. Placement preference will be given to bench placement proposal where benches are across from one another on a walkway, sidewalk, or path. Benches should be placed where shade is currently present or will be present over time due to the placement of tree or trees near the bench. Memorial benches should be placed at a minimum like 100 feet apart. Benches should be placed upon near items of interest, structures such as park facilities, warming houses, pavilions, beaches, fountains, or other park infrastructure is basically what we're trying to get at there. We don't want a bench out in the middle of a green space in a park with absolutely no amenities to kind of enjoy or look at. And then we kind of discussed the concrete pad around the bottom of the benches. So that's in there and what that pad consists of. And then it goes over that the applicant will be responsible for all the costs related to that, the placement of the pad, the bench itself, and then we'll install it. Then memorial trees placed in conjunction with memorial benches shall be placed near a memorial bench to provide future shade. And then it also goes into how we should be ordering a 2-inch ball and burlap tree instead of some of the memorial trees that we've purchased in the past that just get either cut off by members of the public or damaged. A 2-inch does tend to survive at a much higher rate. And then it's also upon the consultation with the tree inspector to ensure that we're kind of diversifying our tree population enough so that we don't have large kill-offs of our trees. And then at the end, it basically says that all of them are subject to approval by the city engineer or public works director. So we wanted to put some guidance around it so that we kind of frame up that program a little more, and so we kind of get a handle on where these are going instead of in very random areas around our parks. So.
All right, thank you, Mr.
Questions
Sandy.
or comments?
Any questions or comments? What do these roughly cost total, all in and done, slab, everything, all together?
I asked for a quote for this year for benches, because they've gone up considerably. Last one I ordered was $850, and I got prices for about $100. Said for a 6-foot slab.
Yeah, $100 to $150. I think you could be all in for $1,000 for the slab and everything, and then we would just provide the installation.
Okay, very good. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Shipe, please.
Paul, could this also go in the design standards document? There's some
Yeah.
really good stuff about the benches.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, a lot of the information I took, I know the Brainerd Northside Association, they handed me a document a while back. Chuck Marone handed me a document. This has a lot of the elements that he had in there, and there's a lot of the elements that I know Mayor Bordeaux and our vice chair have talked about in the past about trying to get a handle on this thing, because we've got a lot of benches that have been placed in the last 5 years that are just in very random locations, especially in Gregory. There's some other ones, but Gregory's kind of the poster child for random bench placement.
Yeah, historically, we let the applicant pick the location, so this is a move towards a more forward-thinking design, that's all. Here.
It's not practical to move some of those, is it?
Practical, yes. Maybe not
popular. Maybe
not popular or kind of ill will. I don't know if we want to. I mean, you guys can certainly make that decision. I don't think I would go out there and do it myself upon not getting approval from the park board.
Seems reasonable.
We're gonna all wear shirts that say the Andrew Shipe bench relocation crew with your phone number on the bottom. Mr. Bedell.
Question, how long do the memorial benches last?
A long time. I mean, they're made out of composite materials, galvanized.
30 years
I mean,
plus.
30, 40 years, yeah. They're
Okay. Do we need a policy for what happens when one does deteriorate? So if there are ones that have been out there for 20 years, which I don't know if we have any of those that are nearing the end, do we need a policy that says once they are, then they get moved into?
I think it would already be in our standard, if I'm not mistaken. We have a standard in our design standard for our benches, don't we?
Yeah, we do. I mean, I think you're just saying about, does that bench get replaced or does it just
Yeah.
get removed?
Oh,
and
you mean
thrown
with the
out?
name, with the applicant's name and all that on there?
It just so that people are aware of what the scenario is.
Yeah, we do have, I think, 10,000 a year in capital budget to replace benches, and so we do have that fund set aside, but maybe the name goes off after that point, I don't know. I mean, they are more expensive to get the name engraved, I think substantially more. So, a couple $100 more.
Just something to think of.
Yeah.
So we can add a statement in there about lifespan of the bench, and upon deterioration to a point where it's no longer usable, the bench would be removed and replaced with a bench, unless the same applicant or family would come forward and replace a bench with that name.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a
That would be our
30-year
avenue
commitment.
to move them in the future at some point too, thinking long-term. If we put an age, a 30-year age or something on
It's
those.
a 30-year commitment, basically say to have your name on this
At the end of
bench.
30 years, we can move them or,
Yep.
yeah. I like that.
That's nice, yeah.
Anything else, guys? All right. Staff is looking for an approval on the memorial bench and tree policy.
Move to approve?
Move to approve by Mr. Scheib,
Second?
second by Mr. Boder. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. There we go. Okay, we're getting there. Here it is, 8C, the discussion of JC's park playground placements. Take it away, Mr. Sandy.
All right, so this conversation came up when we were talking about capital purchase of playground equipment at J.C.'s Park. We got into a little bit of a larger conversation of kind of vision for that park long-term. And since the conversations we had with the playground manufacturer and installers, we've had other information come forward from our mayor about a potential board system that could be used for a hockey rink in that park. And so we have a lot of items to discuss here. I'm just kind of looking for some direction on how you would like this information presented, Mr. Chair, since you were part of that meeting.
Yeah, thank you very much. So basically, Mr. Sandy gave us a really good rundown here. We have the new playground equipment set aside budgetarily for this coming year. That was the impetus to this conversation getting started. Now, unfortunately, we do not have our master planning taking place budgeted till 2023. I did check into that. So we're going to be being forced into making a decision here, either based upon what we think, based upon what we hear, and making our own best effort. But it does look like we will be asked to at least make a recommendation on the playground portion of this without a macro view plan of what JC's could happen. But because of that, what I said is, or what I asked Mr. Sandy, what we talked a little bit about is, let's bring this to our board. Let's talk through and maybe give this board as well as some members from the community time to just kind of chime in on what we'd like to see happen at JC's, just so we're not, and to use kind of what I said, we're not pigeonholing ourselves with an incorrect placement of the equipment, and to where we might want to be doing something different if we had a larger master plan in place. So I guess at this point, if it's all right with you, Mr. Standing, if you're thinking the way I am, we kind of turn it back over to us. We said that we could give this board this full next month to kind of come back with some ideas on master planning and I know none of us here are master planners, but parks are kind of our business. So it would give us a chance to just kind of say, okay, what could JC's look like if the world was our oyster, and looking out 100 years, maybe even into the future, what should JC really have? It's got 2 ball fields. Should it have 3? Should it have a hockey rink? 2 hockey rinks? Should it have 1 playground? 4 playgrounds? Don't know. But this is our chance to look at this before we pull the trigger on a fairly substantial playground set. Currently, keep in mind, guys, that our playground set is split. It's split between the north side and what I'm going to call the ball field side. So we could do that. We could take our money for this playground equipment. We could split it. Or we could combine that playground and say all of the equipment should be in one location, or it should be in the other, or something like that. So we don't know what we don't know at this point. So that's where this mindset came from. Let's get it to all of us here. kick it around for a month, hear some input from anybody who wants to be a participant in the conversation, and just see if we can at least try to make the best decision possible on just the playground equipment at this point. 'Cause that's really all that's really in front of us for right now is the playground equipment. So that's where we're at, guys. And did anybody have anything to add? I mean, would you like to add or at this time?
I have thoughts about the park if you'd like me or.
To the microphone, please.
Oh, look at this.
Is that the one in triplicate that was? Oh, yeah.
No, I don't need anything to bang yet.
Please state your name and address, sir.
Gabe Johnson, 1501 Rosewood Street. I call this option 1 is up north, option 2 is in the middle, option 3 is down in the south. I think I like option 2 there the best, but option 1 has a lot of positive qualities to it too. But I think the one up north and option 1 up on Pine Street already has shade in place, and that's the big benefit of putting a playground there. It's surrounded by mature trees. If you go down in either of the other two, there are no trees. And this park needs a lot of shade. There's a lot of open areas, so regardless of the playground, we need to think about shade when we're thinking about JC's park. I like 2 the best because we have some relatively new, even though it's only a few pieces of small equipment, we have relatively new equipment there in the middle. And that's good high ground there, so we won't have the equipment sinking into the swamp, or it's a pretty swampy park, really. But the Rosewood side, or the southern side here, is closer to the bathrooms and what is kind of a parking lot, if you will. But I think for the master planning, we need to look at what the purpose of this park is. In my opinion, it's a neighborhood park. It's not a regional park where we need to expand the parking lot and bring in a bunch of whatnots, you know. I love what the YMCA did last year, and I like what they're doing, but I don't think we plan for a generation of the YMCA being here. They could leave in 5 years, they could leave in 30 years, but the YMCA is not going to be programming in JC Park in 100 years. But citizens, kids will be living in that neighborhood in 100 years, so I think we got to keep it as a neighborhood park that fulfills the wants and the needs of the citizens there. I think with the ball fields, if we're going to have it be our T-ball park, we don't need 250-foot fence ball fields. I think over the long term, we can take out both of the Bronco and pony fields, turn the pony field into 3 or 4 T-ball fields. T-ballers don't hit the ball 250 feet. They don't. Give them a 2-foot fence, hit some T-ball dingers off of.
That's right, T-ball dingers all day.
But then I think we could use the other field, the second field, to be anything. Soccer field, archery range, golf course. What are kids going to want to do in the future? Let's put it there. We do have a parking problem, and the problem is we put the parking lot in the middle of the park. Because I think it's the only park in the city where the center of the park is where we put all of our cars and then spread out from there. And when that parking lot, which is 73 feet wide, which isn't wide enough to get like 3 rows of parking, it's still just 2 rows, so it's like 50% too wide as it is. I think we need to get rid of that parking lot, shift it 90 degrees and have it be on the far west and south side of the park. Right when you enter the park, leave your car at the entrance of the park and then go in and enjoy the park that has grass and things like that instead of parking your car in the middle of the park. I'd like to see a hockey rink. When I moved in, you can see where the grass is all dead by the garage up there. That's the hockey rink they took out 15 years ago. The grass is still dead from where the hockey rink was. I'd love to see a hockey rink. If we put the playground there where the hockey rink was, we'd have to put it somewhere else. I'd love to see it. Another hockey rink come back to JC Park. We used to have one. Dog park, a lot of people in the neighborhood. I'm on Rosewood Street just outside of the park. Spring, summer, all day long, people walking their dogs to the park to give their dogs space to run. We all have small lot sizes in this neighborhood, like 7,000 square feet, not enough for our dogs to run around. So a lot of, not our dogs, I don't have a dog, but other people's dogs like space. They go to JC's Park with their dogs. So I think sometime 30 years, 50 years, whatever, let's get a dog park there. And then finally, splash pad. People love water. People are excited about the splash pad at Memorial. I think we should get a splash pad somewhere at JC Park. But that's just my master plan. I just go to the park like a few times a week, every day for years now, so that's kind of what I think, and I'll email you all in case you didn't catch it if I was talking too fast. But I do think the middle option B, put the new playground equipment next to where that other playground equipment is. I don't think that's going to get in the way of anything that might come out of a master planning process.
And it's close to the bathrooms.
It's close to the bathrooms, and it's in the middle of the park, and people can access it from either the Pine Street or Rosewood Street entrance.
Right next to the parking lot.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Well, the parking lot, we're going to shift 90 degrees and get it in the edge of the park. Thank you.
It's fun if you look at it that way.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Anybody else have anything to add at this point? Mr. Sandy?
I'm just gonna bring up the hockey rink stuff that I was talking to you guys about right away, since he brought it up. Mr. Mayor did bring forward, there is a Olympic-sized hockey rink board system that is currently for sale on Facebook Marketplace, I believe. I did contact these people. It is the exact same system we currently have at Memorial Park. It's 4 years old. It was put in Reno, Nevada in 2016 and used for 2 years. They then took it down and put it in storage. That includes all the hardware, all the outside backing. The pictures looks like brand new. It's been used for 2 years. All the doors are in it. It doesn't have any glass, which our rink at Memorial Park does not either. It has fences as backdrops to keep pucks in. It's right now located in Bloomington, Indiana. The price for it is $15,000. Then we'd have to pay for shipping. And so it is an option that the park board should consider. We just paid, I think it was right around 80 or 85 for our new system at Memorial. And an Olympic-sized hockey rink. It's gonna be bigger than the one at Memorial, but I think we should be able to shrink it to a size that fits us better. But then it also provides us some parts and supplies for our other board systems that we will have in our parks in the future. So $15,000, it's a very reasonable cost. If the park board wants to pursue something like that, we would get action here tonight, and that would likely go in front of the city council to get approval as an additional budget item.
Chris, I have a question that maybe Chris can answer. Is, on our small rink, is the radius in the corners the same? Hypothetically, could you use this board system for the small rink by removing the straight runs?
I believe they're the same, yes.
I'm just not sure the radius of the Olympic-sized rink.
Well, that's what I'm asking, is if it's just a simple, if the corners are basically the same and the ends are basically the same, if buying this set would get us 95% of what we need on our small rink? That was my question.
If all else fails, yeah. Yep.
Or you put it in JC's.
There's money for that.
You heard it here, folks. Boom,
So, yeah,
right there. This is recorded.
There is park dedication available for use. This
Yep.
would be an item that we could use park dedication on. That fund, we haven't used it in a while. I think we used it for some fence replacements last year, but that was with our dedicated money from the softball program. So our general fund for the park dedication is available, and there's plenty of money in there to do this. I think it's kind of it would be beneficial, both from having parts and pieces, but also having a full-size rink available to put up wherever we please. For $15,000. It seems almost too good to be true.
I know, like. is
But
this
I
scam?
talked to the people, and I have to do a little more research, but they seem like they're on the up and up, and there's another city interested in the same thing.
Mr. Bedell.
Yeah, so if I may, for everything that's terrible about social media, there is something to be said for algorithms and for technology, knowing that I'm a weirdo that likes to look for hockey rinks for some reason. So
bizarre.
So it showed up, and it was actually listed from Bemidji, so the gentleman must have some connection with Bemidji, but that's how
He lives in Bemidji.
that's how it showed up on mine, was that it was not from Indiana, it was just closer. But it's an interesting scenario in which, knowing what we just paid for a similar system, knowing that we have a warming house in JC's that was built as a warming house, and we know how expensive our warming houses are, but does not have a rink to be associated with it, as Paul says, it seems too good to be true, but in sometimes scenarios like this just kind of fall into your lap. And given the way computers work, that algorithms know how to find you when you're looking for something. So just kind of an interesting ordeal, and it fell in line with what we're talking about here with future looks of J.C.'s Park in terms of where things may go. Perfect timing to have that conversation.
Yeah, please.
So would we, if we do this, would we be able to do a pleasure rink then too?
At JC's?
Yeah. I mean, or do the
Hypothetically.
kids? 'cause
If we're down
wouldn't
there
your kids
flooding,
want-
we could certainly flood anywhere else too, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
As long as it's not the north side of the boards.
Sure, yeah, right.
yeah, we might,
Still disgusted by that, I'm sorry.
I say why not, right? I mean, I think if we have the money and this was our future plan, I don't know why we would not look into it and if it's legit. I don't know.
My comment on it is that we have invested the money in the warming house. That's the biggest thing, is that we spent the money on the biggest piece of that puzzle and then removed the part you need afterwards. So we have the biggest expenditure has already been made.
Is the concession stand the warming house? Oh, yeah, okay.
15 grand seems like a drop in the bucket compared to what we're used to. It's something we can use. It seems to make perfect sense.
I mean, we couldn't really even buy the lumber for wooden boards for the cost that we'd be getting for a full plastic board system.
What we're really talking about is potentially a $70,000 saving on a set of boards. If we're, my concern is are we 100% sure that we're going to build a rink at some point? Because the worst case scenario is we fork over 15 grand and they sit in a storage shed for 15 years. That to me is what I think we have to be careful with. But other than that, if we're fairly certain that our ambitions, we don't have a rink budgeted anywhere, guys, for the next, in our capital plan anywhere. So the capital budget needs rejanked around concrete, lighting, underground, all the stuff that goes along with the rink. So we would need to look at our capital budget, which currently doesn't have a rink in it. But if all that aligned, this seems like an awesome deal.
Have we ordered the boards for the small rink at Memorial?
Yep.
Can we cancel that?
I'm just not sure if they're gonna fit yet. I don't wanna do anything rash.
Be great if they
until we know.
did, but
Question.
yes, please.
So do we need to buy this playground? What if, I mean, or do we need to not have it be as extensive and then we use 15,000 of that, or sorry, more than 15 because we need to budget for the, stuff that we need to make the lights and all that, but is that, or is this playground like breaking? And
There's not really a really good playground out there.
Okay.
That is, I mean, the equipment on the north side, on the Pine Street side is, I think probably 50 years old.
Minimum, yeah. If you remember from our park evaluations, we all beat up the playground equipment pretty substantially.
And the stuff on the south side is very minimal. I mean, there's a couple of little spinners or something and.
But is there a way, like, this is really sweet, like the playgrounds we're looking at.
Yeah.
So maybe we get one that's not as extensive.
Have one less slide.
Yeah, and, yeah. But I know that a playground, kids can use more. It's that whole, because like any kid could jump on a playground, where not any kid could throw on some skates, so, and skating is only part of the year and all that, so.
That's also
Go ahead, Mr.
part of the
Shattuck.
year you can't use the playground too, so it's kind of a nice balance.
Yeah. Chris?
DNR does have a bunch of grant out right now. Look at other ways of paying playground equipment.
Yes, please.
I guess my one concern is that, are we sure that the boards at Memorial aren't part of the reason we can't make ice there? It sounded like Troy was maybe thinking the sun was reflecting in a way that he did. I just don't want to buy another
I think
board
there's
system.
probably more to that story than I think what is being told here tonight. We need to do some research and figure out if it's the concrete that's the problem, if it's the boards that are the problem, or what that is. I think there's more to be fleshed out there. To me, I think it is a large majority of a sun issue. you know, they laser screeded that whole rink. I have a really hard time believing that, you know, there was that big of an error that water's back flowing. And so we need to do, and especially because it's only on the north end where the sun beats on the boards all day. And so I think there's some more that we need to flesh out with that, definitely.
The way I see it, we have Mr. Bedeau.
I just wanted to say that personally, I didn't envision this having concrete if it was at J.C.'s. So, but this system could work without concrete, correct? The boards could be put up, we wouldn't have to place
That is
concrete.
actually something that I need to flesh out a little more too.
Okay.
I think it likely could. I think it is self.
You may have to pour like
A ribbon.
A ribbon, yeah, like
to
a,
mount it to. But
Yeah.
But if you poured concrete, you could always use another pickleball net, more basketball nets, whatever, too, as long as in a park.
Yeah, we just need to be careful about J.C.'s and concrete, I think.
Yeah, I know,
Just
the water.
be mindful of the park that we're talking about.
Or we'd be putting it on the high ground, the highest.
The high ground.
The way I see it, guys, we have two options here. We can say, hey, we're gonna strike while this is something we need to move on now. We go ahead, we say, well, there's a very high chance we're gonna need boards in the future, let's pull the trigger. Or we say, let's just let our master planning that we're gonna work on collectively as a group play out for J.C.'s, see if a rink is in the future there. If not, do we do it someplace else? So I think we got kind of two options here. One, move right away on this for fear of selling out from underneath us or whatever. Or go ahead and let our J.C.'s plan play out and make sure that a rink is actually in the future there.
I say buy the thing.
It's coming out of Park Dedication Fund, which, I mean, 15,000 is a lot of money, but in the grand scheme of our budget, that's, the 70,000 that we'd be saving hypothetically on a set of boards is a much larger factor than the 15 we'd be parting with right now. That's my opinion. But,
Can I ask?
yes.
Paul, is there space to store this when we get it? Like,
There's a warming house at J.C.'s.
you know, currently we're, you know, the street department, parks department, that addition going down there, we're gonna have more room that we know what to deal with, I think, down at that facility. We'll have plenty of room, or we will find a spot.
Plus Lum, right? Is Lum full?
Lum is still full right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know, when the first one came from Memorial, how, does it come like in 14 enclosed boxes, or how big of a pot?
They think it could fit in a 24-foot van truck, if you can kind of imagine that.
I'm off next week, I can probably go get it.
oh, hey, that's save money.
Correct.
You got a
I have
van
nothing
truck?
else to do in life. I know people I can get trucks from yet.
I'll make a motion that we purchase, or, right, the $15,000 board
Plus shipping.
hockey rink.
Plus, we got shipping right here.
Plus, yeah, plus shipping.
All right, we have a motion to move on the boards.
Second.
And we got a second on the boards. Do we have any discussion? My only discussion is somebody needs to look at this, make sure that what we're buying is what we think we're buying. I just want to make sure that we're sure of this on the city staff level before we pull the trigger on this.
The internet never lies.
Okay, very good.
I don't want to buy Wish boards, for those of you that are aware of what Wish is.
Right. And if we get there and the owner's last name is Bedeau by something,
Would never do such.
we'll have some eyebrows up. We'll have some answers. Okay, any other discussion on this, guys? So if I'm understanding clearly, this is coming out of our 2022 Park Dedication Fund?
Yep.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Yeah, it was.
Are we
it's
still
done.
on? Are we still on the
Playground.
the playground equipment?
Still on the playground equipment, yes.
Can I make a
That
comment
would
on
have been a
that?
sub-motion, but, well, we didn't even have a motion for the, go ahead.
So I agree with Councilman Johnson that I like option number 2. I don't really like option one, and here's kind of my thought process on that. In that families on that Pine Street entrance could still make their way pretty easily to into the park to use the equipment itself. And it is kind of a nice space on that Pine Street. It doesn't necessarily have to be a playground. You know, it could be just a green space that's available there. There's that little pavilion. It could just be a nice green space available. As the councilman said, That this park is in great need of trees. That is an area that does not need trees. My other comment that I want to make is that just south, on the south side, the south and east side of the park does actually connect to, is it 28th?
You could get through there with trails hypothetically.
19th, excuse me. So the park does actually connect to 19th. So from a grand scheme of things, and you'd have to flip that baby over there.
Opposite side.
There we go, keep going.
Be to the east.
There you go, straight up that way. Now, there is drainage there. It has, the way that the ground was set up, it did have sloping and drainage from the ball fields, but it does connect up to 19th. I personally would like to see us get connected to that street, in that we own that land, it does extend to it. There would be some costs associated with that, but from a grand scheme of things, from, if we're gonna talk what I'd like to see from a big scope, I'd like to see us connect to that street in some way, even if it's a beaten path that allows people to get to the park from that side as well. So
They could go
those
by
are my
boat.
Awesome.
What's that?
Could go by boat.
You could go by boat, although
Duck boat.
a lot of thistle, lot of you're gonna end up with some prickers. So let's just say that.
Like life itself.
That's right, as is tradition. But I would just like to say those would be my two comments about that park in particular. It would be nice to get connected to more areas. The nice thing from that is then you have access from 3 different streets.
Yep. All right, guys, so we've got homework here. What we're being asked to do is over the next month, look at kind of a macro plan for J.C.'s. All right, and then so we're going to come back to our next meeting with what everyone's ideas are, and we'll hash that out, and that will then further our discussion along on our playground equipment and placement. So think big here, guys, okay? Think macro view. We'll come back and we'll talk about it. Where am I? Is that it on that one? We good on there? Very good. All right, we are going to go to our newly added item. This is item 8D. This is the master plan. Mr. Shipe, take it away.
Yeah, it was really this JC's discussion that kind of brought it into an issue for me, is that I think we're going to have a lot of these situations in the coming years where it would be nice to have a vision for JC's or Buffalo Hills or some of these parks. And we'll have capital planned, but not that vision to really use it in the best way possible. So I guess what I'm interested in is if we can free up some budget to bring some of that master planning forwards, knowing that we would be using, right, the money we're spending in a better way. So I think I'd like to get the council's thoughts on that, and then, I don't know, maybe we see if we can ask
Yep.
staff to try to find money.
This may or may not be a good time to point out that I asked for this to be added in the 2020 budget, 2021 budget originally. So I'm all on board with shifting at all cost. I would love to see, no matter what it takes, I would love to see master planning happen as soon as humanly possible. Ms. Sandy and I were talking a little bit about this also, and just about what master planning might look like. And the point being is that we really don't know what we don't know about park design. There are companies out there nationally that's all they do is specialize in green space design and forward thinking on low maintenance and yada, yada, yada. So my thinking on the master plan is that we would intentionally try to outreach to some of these firms that are nation based that just specialize in park design, and just see if what they come back, they could look at our green spaces, and again, very high view, put this here, put this there, this is a good spot for that, this is a good spot for that, real high view, give us a more global, forward-thinking vision of all of these parks, because our capital budget, absolutely, Mr. Shipe, has money set aside to start taking on these projects. I'd love to see the vision, so I'm all on board with you, Mr. Shipe, under, I don't know what that looks like and how we would be moving money around, but all on board, 100%. Anybody, Mr. Sandy?
Just a little outline on process. So we usually go through a budgeting cycle with the council. Now starting, usually in March, we start our capital budgets. And so that is, if there are things that you guys would like to see for 2023, March would be the time frame to do that. We don't like to see huge changes, I guess. We try to get our capital budgets as accurate as possible at the time of, but We understand that throughout the year, there's gonna be cost shifts and things, but that is typically our capital now is taken care of in March. We get that kind of solidified, and then we move on to operational budgets. And so last year, I think you guys saw your final budgets, I think, right around in fall. But at that time, the capital budgets and things were still being worked on for parks, but I think that'll now follow more of what the city council has for their budget timelines, and that's March basically being the capital timeline. So that would be the time to change, unless we're like adamant on something in 2022, which would be hard to put together in a short amount of time, in my opinion.
The one thing I will say is I believe we have a resurfacing of a major parking lot happening in 2022, which would easily take care of our,
That
no?
got nixed, I think.
It did? Okay. Mr. Johnson? I believe it was Buffalo Hills, was it? Not Buffalo Hills?
I think Buffalo Hills, yes, the resurfacing of Memorial Park got nixed for this year, I believe.
Anyways, I thought we still had a major resurfacing project in our 2022 budget, but I could be wrong.
I don't believe so.
Okay. Our capital design, I believe was 75 grand. Does that sound right, Mr. Sandy?
Or building remodels, yes.
Yes. Or excuse me, I mean our capital plan, our master plan.
Yep.
I believe we set aside 75 grand in 2023, I believe is where it's currently sitting, guys. So, but I'm all for taking a look at what we got even in 2020. It just seems like it should happen as soon as possible, in my opinion.
Not to reiterate.
Yeah, please.
You said that the Memorial Park field, the parking lot got nixed now?
I'm pretty sure it did during the budget discussions last year.
I'm really unimpressed with this $2 million project that we put money into and years into, and we have sheetrock that looks like a dog wiped a tying in on it. You know, it's a brand new building. It should be brand new stuff. And now we have a parking lot that we paid way too much for, and now we can't use it? He wanted $300,000, we offered $280,000. Why did we offer $75,000? Just seems like an awful lot of throwing darts at things that don't hit. And now we find out the parking lot can't get replaced or resurfaced.
Technically, I don't believe the parking lot is actually parkland. If I am correct about that, I don't think it's ever been dedicated as parkland. So the parking lot is a council issue. And that, I mean,
But it came out of our budget.
I don't know.
It was in our budget, and then I believe it got
Yeah, it was
taken
removed
out.
from the budget. I don't believe it's ever been switched over to parkland. I do believe it's just city land, so.
Then why did that money get taken out of our park money and now it belongs to the city as opposed to the park?
If you want to take on the responsibility of repaving that, I will allow the council to let you do that. But I personally would prefer that it doesn't come out of the park's budget to repave parking lots.
I second that.
Correct, and I agree, but it just seemed, I thought it was already part of the deal that's why we paid $290,000 for this chunk of concrete or tar.
From what I recall from the capital budgeting, we had it in our capital budget that we proposed to the council, and then it got removed at some point through that process. Mm. 2022 preliminary.
Put the budget on the website, it'd be really easy to find.
I can't even find the website.
You're, Ms. Sandy, you're looking at the 2023 proposed budget?
2022.
2022? I'm pretty sure Buffalo's on there.
For 2023.
Is it 2023?
For clarification, are you asking to move funds from the parking lot to master planning? Oh, that sounds like a great idea. I greatly appreciate your guidance as the runner of this meeting.
That's what I'm trying to do here, but I'm trying to see if we have money in there for any paving anywhere.
It's not in there at all. The parking lot.
Okay, so it sounds like.
For Memorial Park.
Okay. So it sounds like there's at least some momentum going the direction of moving the master planning forward. But I'd also, like to give you the opportunity, Kara and Tim, to chime in on this as well. Just before we ask staff to start start looking at some things there. So I'd love to hear what you guys have to say, if you have something to say. If not, And I think our next step would be to ask staff to look at our budget and to see what could be, come back to us with some ideas of moving some stuff around. Because currently, our master plan is not scheduled for 2023. When you assume it's going to take a year to lag through that, means we could not actually be putting it in place in budget to 2025-ish. You get it done in 23, you're setting your budget in 24 already, stuff actually starts happening in 25, so it's a big lag time. Mr. Badeau.
How much, and this is a question for Paul, how much of this do you think we could take on ourselves, Paul? Or that this group could take on in terms of master planning individual parks? Do you think that's something that we could do, or is it?
Depends on what the final product is. I'm definitely not a master planner. I am not a green space designer. I build roadways and maintain things. I don't know if Katie has that ability. Depends on what
I
what
look at
level of
kind of
work
similar
you
to
guys-
what happened with LUM, Dave, where, we had a partner, they brought forth there was some momentum going that had us look at parking, had us look at buildings and blah, 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 blah.
get
So
some
we
renderings
collaborated
and
with an
things.
outside entity to get an umbrella view of, so I think we're all participants, but I think the idea was that we would need a partner to help us
And
fashion.
you get
it
some
into-
renderings to visualize that, and that's one thing we can't do.
I think we could do a lot. I think we'd be a huge participant in a big chunk of it, though. I mean, we're the ones, putting in time and effort every week, uncompensated. We obviously care, so it seems like we should be at least partial decision makers. Go ahead, Mr. Scheck.
Yeah, and I wonder if we had you mentioned kind of a global vision. If we were able to get a partner to give us some direction, if we could run with that and say, okay, this is how these principles apply to JCs, right? You have poor drainage, but it's a community park. So these are some strategies to make it a really good place. So if we're able to do something like that even now to get some drafts, and then knowing that the LUM level comes later, would still be something, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you could identify neighborhood parks versus municipal parks, and once you've got that metric kind of understood of these are the parts and pieces that commonly go into those parks, this is roughly how much parking you should have, this is roughly what your lighting should be, then I think we could begin to apply those principles. But the idea is to get some help, or to just help us get a grasp of that general overall direction. New parks definitely look different than 100-year-old parks, and that's where my mind goes, is we don't know what we don't know about park design.
Yeah, I would fully support if there was a way to find that money for this next year. 'Cause, I mean, we're working so hard, like you guys have all said. It'd be silly to have this momentum and stop until 2025 or whatever it ends up being. So if it's possible, we don't pave a parking lot or whatever. If there's something, if you could come up with a couple ideas of what we can maybe hold off on, swap around.
Well, I mean, the master plan is already included in our 2023 budget, from what I recall.
Yep, it is.
So that money would be available to us in 2023 without removing anything.
But this year?
2023.
Right,
Yep.
The idea would be to move it forward,
Yep.
if at all possible.
if possible.
So
Something would probably have to go then. I mean, that's
that's what we're talking
the
about, is
council
see
would
if
be-
there's something that could go.
Swap something
The
out.
one thing that would probably go would be the playground then. I mean, that's what hasn't really been ordered yet.
Did you have our 2022 in front of you there?
Yes. I can get it real quick here. Well, maybe I can't. I'm not connected to the network.
Buffalo was 2023. Buffalo parking.
You're connected to the network? You're in the network drives? You don't have the engineering drive?
Well, at this point, we kind of have a general direction and a consensus here that we're going to try to look to getting the master plan moved forward as much as we possibly can, and to have you guys, have Paul maybe take a look at our budget and see what could be jockeyed around there, if possible. But we already have it in the 2023, so.
Okay.
But thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Okay.
You good on that one, Andrew?
Thank you.
Awesome. All right, very good. So with that, we're going to move on to the public forum. I'm going to open the public forum at 5:39. This is time allocated for citizens to bring matters that are not on the agenda to the board. Time limits will most certainly be imposed. Do we have anyone from public forum? Anyone online? No. All right, very good. I'm going to close the public forum at 5:39. And we're going to move on to item number 10, which is city admin report. Something I always look forward to.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'm just going to have 2 quick updates on things that I think are related or the park board may be interested in. One, the council did adopt the levy and their budget at their December 20th meeting. So that was after the last park board meeting. The other thing is that the council did approve amendments to the charter regarding the contribution of a $500,000 to the center, the ARB, and Brainerd Community Action. The Charter Commission recommended making that language more vague. So instead of specifically naming organizations, to say organizations serving senior citizens, organization doing green space or arboretums, and organizations doing events and community action. The council did adopt the ordinance, and then staff recommended doing requests for proposals for each category, and then asked the council to appoint a couple of council members as a subcommittee. At the meeting last week, they appointed Councilman Stunek and Councilman Erickson to work with staff to draft the RFPs. The subcommittee is having their first meeting on Monday with the intention to have draft RFPs for the council's consideration on the February 7th meeting. Then we would release the request for proposals, which would be due back by March 10th. And then we would make, the subcommittee would then make a recommendation to the full council at their March 21st city council meeting. So just wanted to kind of bring you up to date on the process of that. And that's all I have, Mr. Chair, unless the mayor has something more to add, or?
I just had one item to add. We installed the sled garage at Big Sev, and then I was called on to a whirlwind press tour where everyone wanted to hear all about this sled garage. So I want to thank the park board for that. We did have some sleds that were victims of the gods of Big Sev, because it is a hill that it is not kind to your sled. It doesn't care about your sled at all. So it will take your sled out if at all possible. But that hill is getting greatly used. I have had a lot of interaction with people who have been very thankful for us for doing that. And so I just want to thank you guys for that. I went there today to round up more broken sleds. We still have a handful left that are still in the sled garage. The one thing I will note is that people are actually bringing the sleds back to the garage, and then even the broken ones are being set up there as well. So it's actually working really well to have them removed. Twice now that I've went in and removed sleds, and I don't know if we'll refill it after those ones are gone this year. I made the purchase through the Merrill funds. And at the time I was thinking I'll just purchase half and then we'll purchase another half after we see how it went. Sleds in this area are gone, and shipping for sleds is super expensive. So if anybody out there is interested in just donating some sleds, you can drop them off into the sled garage for public use. But I think it has went really, really well. And the response from the public has been phenomenal. So I just want to thank you guys for letting that small little thing go through. So
Awesome. Yeah. Downhill Nationals 2023, baby.
I have been watching all sorts of Red Bull events, and the Downhill Nationals is the greatest thing that you have brought up.
Downhill Nationals 2023.
Cardboard, down the hill. Kevin Yeager in one, myself and another, Tim in his own.
It's all about the tights.
Let's do some racing.
That's right.
Your internet searches are different than mine.
Dynamic.
I'm super excited about how just little changes that we can make and little costs. You know, a little
Great thing. I mean,
yeah.
the donation seems like it could go through the roof if you tell people to bring sleds.
Exactly. A little bit of staff time this fall to clear some of the trees up, maybe some more work next year. But what a great way to just take a little step and improve one of our underutilized parks. So
huge thank you to you and Alderman O'Day.
Yeah. And it's too bad that Councilman Johnson left. Him and his wife are the ones that actually came up with the idea. And then, like I said, Councilman O'Day built it with the wood out of his house.
Killer.
So
awesome.
Yeah. Thank you guys.
Okay, city engineer report, item number 11. Mr. Sandy.
I'll let Katie go ahead and go first.
We'll go to coordinator report.
Great. All right, so thank you. Recreation, Brainerd Early Bird is set to happen on April 23rd this year. For those that aren't familiar, it's a men's CD tournament. That's the team ranking, 12-team double elimination that we host right before the season starts. So that's why it's called the Early Bird. Youth sports page. So I know we talked about a postcard of where people can register, but I have, updated. So if you were to go to our website and just click youth sports, that main page that you would get to, I'm listing off all of the sports that are available in our parks and the immediate link that you can click to register for that sport. So it's like you'll see it and then you're like, oh, I want to do that. Click. It'll take you to YMCA's registration, or it'll take you to Community Ed's registration. So we have that kind of organized a little bit and just waiting on more details and releasing of the registration of some sports. So that's up and going. Youth pond hockey, we decided on just having one team for Penguins despite having 21 participants, which is a good amount of kids for one team. But our reasoning for just keeping one team short staff, and then also a lot of some are dropping out, and then others, the COVID-19 exposure issue, like they're not showing up, or scheduling issues. So one team for Penguin, one team for Polar Bear. And then they've already started doing their games. So far, it's been going pretty well. No issues have been coming to my attention. The Palooza this year, so the Jamboree, Pond Hockey Jamboree is where they typically used to go play at the Civic Center. We're going to host it at Memorial Park and divide the ice in half and do a 4-on-4 competition. So we're going to divide the Penguin team, because there's 21, we're going to divide it into 3 teams. NISWA is going to bring 1 team. We'll do a round-robin 4-team series, and then same thing for Polar Bears. We'll divide that into 2, and then NISWA will bring 2. So that's what we'll do. So that'll be fun. And then let's see what else. Something to note for you guys is that our pond hockey equipment is getting extremely outdated and just in rough shape. So at the end of the year, this year, we're going to go through all of that and toss the stuff that doesn't work. We might just take off some of the equipment off some of the helmets, and we can reuse that to fix other helmets. But that might be something we look at if there's any extra revenue from the program and purchasing some equipment for the next year, because a lot of it's a disrepair. Kids are kind of like, ugh, looking at it. So, so that's something to be aware of. Adult pond hockey is going pretty well. Just the issue with the ice for 4-on-4 pond hockey, making sure that there's enough ice at Memorial. We had to do a reschedule last week, but it'll be fine. We'll work through it. Warming houses, I think this year will be the first year that without kind of the COVID restrictions that we're having the warming houses open. So moving forward, it'll be good to look at a report of how many skaters we had, how much of the public we're serving on certain days, certain times, whether our weather policy is impacting that participation. So maybe after the season, we can look at if we need to change the weather policy so we're not open when there's 0 skaters, to work better for us as a service to the public. That's something also to look into. So, and I mean, we do have very little concessions at the warming houses, hot cocoa, some Powerade and stuff. So it's hard to make money there. So just something to be aware of. It is a service. Special events, so the Valentine's Day skating party take place on Sunday, February 13th, 1 to 4 at Gregory Park. And then the next day, Smooch a Pooch, so this is where people can come and get a picture with their dog in a kissing booth at the dog park that our staff made. So we had pictures of that from last year, or 2 years ago, I believe, when we had it. So that'll be actually on Valentine's Day. So if you're looking for something to do on Valentine's Day with your dog, you can do that from 3:30 to 5:30. We'll have that set up. And then I wanted to make sure we touched base on special events, future creating special events. I sent you guys a tentative idea for a big end of summer bash. taking place in August 27th, tentatively. It had a lot of different things listed. Would you like me to list everything again? I can, if you guys would like. Okay, so it's basically a very large family, just a lot of different types of sports happening, and then also we're trying to incorporate more community partnerships, so maybe asking the skate park association to be there, or pickleball, maybe getting the center involved, getting the YMCA involved for the basketball, that type of stuff. But just making sure we could do one large event at one of our parks and utilize almost every inch of the park would be really neat. So that's that idea. And then I'm open to ideas for the winter event, date-wise and actual what you guys are looking for. I don't have anything to present today with that, but I am looking for, if you want to do that cardboard race downhill thing.
Absolutely.
I'm sure we could partner with Community Action and
Red
downtown
Bull.
Brainerd.
We would love to have that discussion and figure out how we can make something like that happen.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
What they call the other thing in the city, bed race for bridging or whatever, something like that. It's enormous, 15,000 people show up for it and watch it. It'd be really cool.
there's-
You can't fit that many people in the park.
Yeah, there's another conversation, because I started watching the Red Bull stuff. The Red Bull soapbox derby stuff is amazing, and I know we used to have our soapbox derby as well, but those are some conversations we could have as well about looking at potentially doing something like that. And it doesn't have to be anything serious. I think the reason why I really like that idea on Big Sev is that it can be done fairly simply, because it's all made of cardboard. So, yeah, I love that idea.
Okay.
The downhill by Mississippi Landing would be perfect. We did the start at the top by Mississippi Landing.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I was watching Red Bull Soapbox Derby
Yeah.
for like longer than I should have last night. Longer than I should have last night. Very fun.
Again, our searches are different.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know how it came up, but it came up.
okay. So yeah, I can definitely touch base with you, Dave, on that. But I am kind of looking, just kind of, is this the direction you want me to go? Are you guys okay with kind of end of summer bash and figuring out a way to make it all happen?
So I see a lot of head nods.
Okay, we're good. Okay.
Yeah, sounds great.
Moving on. So the field banner program, I sent out emails this year, and almost all of them are re-upping their banner commitments to the fields, and then I'll be sending out to new places that mostly within Brainerd is what we kind of agreed on, unless they come to us. So just to fill you in 2020, because of COVID, we actually gave everyone a year for free. So you'll be seeing a lot more money rolling into the dedication fund for those specific parks that they're being hung at. The other thing is we did change kind of our fee structure a little bit, and a lot of people are doing a 4-year commitment of 3-year commitment for $400. So they're even larger than like your 1 year $150. So just something to be aware of. That's all I have for my report.
What do you think of a yearly field sponsor?
You know, I had somebody approach me at one point about the dugouts even, like saying like, I would rather just sponsor the field. And I
Right.
said, yeah, we could maybe look at putting a name on the dugouts, But yeah, there was specifically one sponsor locally that said, I don't want other people's banners. I want the
Right.
field. I want to name or
Right.
sponsor the field. So
WSB Field. I can
it
see
is a thought process out there that people are potentially
Seasonally, just one season.
It's
Yeah.
seasonally, yeah.
Just throwing that out there.
US Bank Park.
Well, exactly. You could be the field sponsor for an entire season for
That's right.
name a number, name a price.
$1,000.
$1,000.
Some of the fields are already named. Just something. to
Yeah,
be
but it's
aware
the
of.
sponsor for. So it'd be like the such and such field by this sponsor for 2021, something like that.
Okay.
$1,000 right there. Boom. Okay. Well,
Go for 1,000, we go for 6.
15 or 6,000.
Let's not get too carried
You
away.
don't-
Let's find out how much our fields are getting used
You don't
first.
get money unless you ask for it,
That's true.
That's
yeah.
true, absolutely.
and you can always bargain down.
I like the idea though. Maybe.
Hey, listen, the first thing we should be doing is naming our amphitheater, and that should definitely come with naming rights at Mr. Peanut Park.
Is that it? I think that's it,
For
right, guys?
me, but,
Paul's.
Oh, Paul,
Paul's
I'm
one
sorry.
to
I
go.
usually do you first. Yep.
Shy.
Mr. Sandy.
So I pulled up the budget while Katie was talking a little bit. The parking lot paving was in 2023 for Buffalo Hills, and the master plan we had listed in 2024.
Okay.
So I think we could flop those or just move it all into 1 year. I don't think it really matters. It's just the year that this money is set aside. The other thing, there's not really anything this year that we could just like set aside unless we like didn't do the playground. Everything else has been ordered. You know, we had picnic tables, benches, all that kind of stuff that's already been put on order, except for the playground. That's really the only thing. So that's just a follow-up on that item. So, I mean, we could switch that around. Like I said, March is when we're talking with capital budgets with all the departments. And so
For 2023,
for 2023,
Yeah.
yep. Capital budgets, yep.
I'd say for sure that, but
Yeah.
that's my vote.
We could
Because
certainly-
what is the Buffalo repaving? 140, if I remember right?
250.
250.
It's not even repaving, it would be paving.
Or initial paving, yeah.
Yeah. Or we just don't do it at all. I mean, it's up to you guys. The only thing I really have to report on is I met with the Kiwanis Club. I went to their monthly or weekly meeting. I think it's monthly. Over at the church over here. And they are really looking forward to partnering with us this summer on doing some park improvements at Kiwanis. So new signage. They have $10,000 set aside, and they said sweat equity for them is worth a lot. So tree trimming, pruning, cleaning up the park with our upgrades and what we're doing there and what they have, I think we'll have it looking pretty nice. So that's really all I had in my report that wasn't already talked about tonight. So
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Sandy. All right, with that, I would conclude our meeting, so we'd be looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Boder,
Seconded.
seconded by Mr. Shipe. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.